beautiful, welcome back to my channel and welcome to this video that is probably, for me at least, my most exciting video of the year. This is going to be me ranking all of my palettes that I've tried throughout this year, ranking them from absolute fail to absolute holy grail, all the palettes that has been released that I have reviewed throughout the year of 2022. There is a bunch of palettes here. I'm having sticky notes. I'm having place 93. So there's at least 93 palettes within this ranking, but some palettes I'm ranking together. So in the title, you probably will be able to see the exact amount of palettes, because some palettes I'm like ranking them together. They were released at the same time, or they're from the same brand or something along those lines. But if you're interested in this video, if you like rankings like this, if you like eyeshadow palettes, this is the place to be. I would love to see you subscribe, because right now I'm uploading every day until Christmas. And yeah, I am a huge fan of eyeshadows, and I am a huge fan of colorful eyeshadows, especially from indie brands. I'm wearing actually two palettes today on my eyes. That is going to be towards the end of the video. It's going to be some of my favorite palettes of the year. I'm going to let you know about that once we get there. Did film this look though, and I'm going to have what I'm wearing in the description box down below, together with the link for this tutorial, because I'm fairly sure that this tutorial, I'm gonna have it as a short. It's already gonna be live as you're watching this. I will say though that I'm not gonna be able to link all of these palettes, because as you heard, there are at least 93 palettes. So what I'm gonna do is that I'm just gonna leave a couple of like directions on where to shop some of these things. I do have my affiliate links and my affiliate codes down below in case you want to save money on these palettes, because on some of these brands I do have an affiliate code. So if you're interested in anything that I'm talking about in this video, check the description box. I do have some stuff there if you want to support my channel, if you found this video helpful. I'm also not going to be mentioning two palettes, and this is just a quick like housekeeping. These two palettes, I'm not going to be ranking them. This is my palette. This is the palette that I did with Oden's Eye. This is the Hella palette. This is now sold out. We're not restocking it. This has been discontinued. But yeah, this is of course my favorite palette. Like, I did this palette. It came out in February. I think it's absolutely amazing, but I think it will be a little bit boring for me to put this at the spot number one. So just know that I still love my palette, even though I'm not going to be ranking it. I'm also not going to be ranking my besties palette. This is Heather Austin's palette that she did with Nomad Cosmetics. I talk with Heather Austin each and every day. I've been on vacation with Heather Austin twice. I already have my third vacation planned with her. She is literally one of my best friends. I am very biased with this palette, and even though I do think that this is an incredible quality palette, again, I'm not going to be ranking it. Just know that I love it and that I didn't deliberately leave it out of the ranking. I just feel like I'm a little bit biased when it comes to that, because I literally spoke to her 3 minutes ago. So let's start at the absolute bottom. This is the palette that I've tried that I thought was either the least quality or the least fun, or I'm the least likely to reach for again. And I will let you know that a lot of palettes that are at the bottom I have already decluttered from my collection. If you've seen my eyeshadow palette declutter, that was yesterday's video. And also if you are interested in like the best products of 2022, that video was live earlier this week. So check back on my channel if you want to see more about like what I thought was the best and the worst makeup of the year, my declutters. Everything is already live. I'm starting here. This is the Welcome to Miami by Essence. I just don't think that this is good quality. I know that some people were trying to argue with me or were very upset with me that I thought that this was bad quality and said that it was good for the price. I don't think it's good for the price. I'm sorry. I don't think that this is a good palette. I think that you can make much better purchasing decisions at the drugstore than this palette. I think it's sheer. I think it's boring. I think it's very 1992. I think we can do better than that. I think that we all deserve better quality than this. At the next spot, I actually have the Color Block palettes by Huda Beauty. These were something, I tried this in the beginning of the year. I think that the oranges are fairly fine in this one. I just think that like the idea of this, the way that they look in the pan. If you hear someone snoring, by the way, that is my big dog that's under the table. He lives here. He lives here. Someone told me that I should lock up my dogs when I'm filming. I'm like, I'm inviting you to my home. He lives here, okay? It's totally fine. But if you hear him snoring, that's why. But yeah, this palette, I think it's a really cool idea because it's color blocking. It's like a peach, a purple, an orange. Like it's cool. It looks cool, but it's not very user friendly. And honestly, these purple shadows are incredibly bad quality. And then we have this palette that is the green and blue. I honestly like this one more, but these shadows do not really layer on each other. These are not great quality, colorful shadows, and I feel bad. Huda Beauty is a big brand. Basically, Huda Beauty is one of the biggest beauty brands in the world. We might not think of that, but she is. She can afford to make better eyeshadows like this. Don't let people that walk into Sephora seeing these thinking that this is what colorful eyeshadows are. You can make much better, again, purchasing decisions when it comes to colorful eyeshadows than these. These are not very impressive. I would say stay clear of these. I don't think that these were good at all. Then I'm putting the ColourPop All Amethyst palette, and I got a bad one. I know that this is something that annoys me. Let me know if this annoys you, but it annoys me. When YouTubers try to justify why they don't like something with saying that it's probably a bad batch. It's okay if you dislike something that everybody else loves. We all have different preferences, but I will say with this one, I have seen people live swatch the All Amethyst palette. This one came out in the beginning of the year. It's one of the first videos that I did after moving here, and I saw people live swatching this, and I'm like, mine doesn't do that. Mine swatches incredibly bad. Like, they are so hard pressed. This one is so hard pressed that I'm beginning to think that it's actually plastic. It's like, this is not an eyeshadow. They just actually put in a piece of like paper with color on it. So mine, I think that mine is too hard pressed, and I've heard this from other people as well, that you've also gotten some eyeshadows from ColourPop during this year where some shadows have been too hard pressed, and I also have that in another palette that I'm going to be talking about as well. So I'm feeling that maybe something has been up with production. Maybe some settings on the machine is a little bit wonky, because yeah, some shadows from ColourPop has been very hard pressed this year, and this one had more than one of them. I wasn't impressed with this. I thought I was gonna love it, but it ended up being like just a little bit flat, and you will see when we get to the top that there are definitely palettes from ColourPop that I really do enjoy. That one just not so much. And this makes me so sad, but this is the Nomad Santa's Village. I love Nomad Cosmetics, and again, once we get to the top, you're going to be able to see which palettes from them I really enjoy, but I didn't think that this quality lives up to the normal Nomad quality, and I also don't think that the matte selection really lives up to how good they are with picking colors normally, because these colors are nice, but they don't really go with each other. And I will say that I'm fairly creative when it comes to makeup. I can see color combos maybe in a way. I'm not going to be like, oh, I'm the best. That's not it. But I can look at a palette and maybe come up with color combos that maybe not everyone would see. But I'm having some issues coming up with like really good color combos with this one. And I just think that this isn't their best work. The shimmers in this one is not the good shimmer formula that I'm used to with Nomad Cosmetics, and they've definitely done better things than that. And I feel exactly the same about these. These are the Hershey Kisses by Glamlight. And here you're definitely going to see when we come up to like the higher parts of this ranking that Glamlight is really doing good. Let me say that. I just didn't think that these palettes lived up to the Glamlight formula that I have come to know and love. I just feel like it's not that great formula. And also the color selection is like a little, I don't want to say mediocre, but like they're like monochromatic palettes, and like some of these shadows are really good, but none of these palettes have a color story where you're like, oh yes, that one brings something new to the table. I think the packaging is cute. They're not like really that hard to store. It wasn't a home run, and Glamlight has done some really amazing things this year. This just wasn't one of them. This also makes me a little sad. Don't cancel me for putting this one here. I love Hindash Artistry. I think he is an amazing makeup artist, and I really like the other things from his line. I'm saying this because people get wild sometimes when you say that you don't like really beloved people's palettes. I don't like this one. It is a very, you know when YouTubers say creamy, this is creamy, almost to the point where you're like, is this a cream to powder? It is very creamy, it's very emollient, but it's also kind of sheer, which works great for these shades because this is an all-encompassing palette. Like, is it a cheek, like everything palette? And these shades are shades that I would use on my cheeks. I wouldn't use these on my cheeks, especially not a turquoise, and they're pretty sheer. And I don't want a sheer turquoise. And even though they're buildable, they're not buildable to the point where I want it to be. I want it to be this opaque, this vibrant, if it's a turquoise. I don't want a sheer turquoise. I really don't. I have been using this as blush, and it's beautiful as blush, but it's not why I bought the palette. So for me, it's just falling a little bit flat because I'm like, I was just hoping for more, and it's not my kind of a formula. I like a more pigmented formula than that. If you're looking for something that is extremely blendable, not full-on pigment straight away, and you aren't looking for something that can go this dramatic, maybe that could be for you, but for me, it's not for me. And I feel the same about this one. This is the ColourPop Shell Shocked, yes, which is a very peculiar name, I agree. Some of you have been pointing it out, and I agree, I didn't pick the name. This is very there, not there makeup. I mean, what you see is what you get, but somehow I was thinking when I saw this online, I was thinking that you were probably going to be able to build these two mattes up in the crease. No, this is if you like a very there but not there, glowy, effortless, almost like a South Asian style makeup, like Korean makeup, which is this style, and a lot of people love that. And if you were looking for that, something that is a little bit more sheer, shimmery, there but not there makeup, kind of effortless, I could recommend this. But I was kind of, again, I don't want a sheer turquoise. I wanted more. It's not bad, but it's definitely not my favorite. I'm already warm. Trying to be cute, but I'm too warm to be cute. Okay, LH Cosmetics Daybreak palette. This is a little bit more of a preference. This one goes more cool tone than I would like. And you would think, looking at this palette, that this one would be a favorite, but I think that this one is too sheer. It doesn't really build up. It doesn't hold on its own for me to be like a lid color or an inner corner highlight. And both of these two look just like a gray transition shade on me, and I don't love that. So for me, this isn't perfect for my skin tone. I would say that I am a light to medium with neutral golden undertone, and this one doesn't look the most flattering on me. But they did release another palette quite recently that is much higher up that I much prefer personally. I'm gonna put this one here. I feel like I'm the only one online that didn't hate the Wild Greens by Urban Decay. I think that this one is like what you see is what you get. These are good quality mattes, good quality shimmers. Some of them even have a little bit of a duochromeness to them. Some of them have some really interesting like shimmer particles to them. Are there a super impressive color scheme? No. Is this palette deep enough or dramatic enough for me? No. But I do think that it's good for what it is. If this is what you are after, half neutral, half muted green palette, I don't think you'll be disappointed. I didn't think that this was a bad palette, but of course it's not my favorite color scheme, but this is lower at the bottom because of like the color scheme. I wish it had like a dark green. But again, that's like me. I wish everything had a darker color. This is a color scheme thing. This is Unearthly Bunnies palette. I think that this one is a color scheme that doesn't work for me because all of these mattes are too dark to be a pastel and too light to be like an all-encompassing like crease shade for me. And I feel like a bunch of these shimmers, if not all shimmers, read darker on the lid, and I like it to be the opposite. I like a darker matte and a lighter shimmer, so that is just a preference for me. There's a bunch of Unearthly palettes from this year that I really love. This one just fell a little short for me because of the choices when it comes to colors. Then we have the Sorcerer palette from Fantasy Cosmetica. This one was released during this year. The shimmers are incredible. The color story is incredible. This is the kind of palette where you need to start with the darker color though and blend out with the lighter to be able to get this to be full opacity. And even then, some of these mattes are a little sheer patchy. So I feel like this one is probably my least favorite when it comes to the matte formula out of the Fantasy Cosmetica palettes, but I still think it's a beautiful palette. It's just not my favorite from them. Then we have the Colourpop and the Mandalorian palette. I like this, and I have actually done looks with this that I've really enjoyed, but this is not going to be a palette that I like reach for on a daily because of this just being very gray. These colors aren't for me. I like these two. They translate a little better on my skin tone, but yet these two aren't like my perfect shades. And I also will say that this yellowy here is also a little bit more hard pressed in my palette. Not to the point where I can't pick it up like that Amethyst palette, but definitely to the point where I noticed that there is something different with it. Don't think that that palette is awful by any stretch of the imagination. It's just not my preferred color scheme, and also one of the shadows is a little too hard pressed. Then we have the Jaclyn Cosmetics palette. This is the first palette that was released this year. I was kind of you're probably like, why did you pick this one up? This is what I thought. I thought that this was going to be one of those palettes when you got it, you realized that it actually had some depth and dimension, that it actually was like a little bit more exciting than it looked like, you know, online. There's a lot of palettes that are like that. This isn't one of them. What you see is what you get. And I'm gonna be honest, there's a couple of shades here that are incredibly similar to the point where it's like, did all of these need to be in here? And this color story is also a little cool tone for my liking, and I didn't think it was going to be this cool tone. And I will say this color story is a little Beauty Guru 2016. The color story is a little dated. I don't need to be mean, but the color story is a little dated. There's nothing wrong with the palette. I'm just very much not blown away by it. Here is the other ColourPop palette that I talked about that I feel have some like more hard pressed shadows. There is a long hair here. This is the East High, the High School Musical palette that ColourPop did. Pointing myself in the eye. This color story is a little generic, a little like expected, but I don't hate that there's a bunch of options: orange, green, like blue, pink, red. I will say though that both this like peachy orangey matte and this like purpley matte down here are very hard pressed. Not to the point where I can't pick them up, but definitely to the point where I need to choose a brush that's not too soft and I need to like really go in there. So again, I don't know if anyone else discovered this with this High School Musical palette, but the color story is not super inspiring. I mean, it is what it is. It's not my favorite palette from ColourPop from this year. This is probably the palette that surprised me the most, and not necessarily in a positive way, unfortunately. Like I said, I am a person that really loves indie brands. I love discovering new indie brands, and this one is the new palette from Nomad Cosmetics. It's the Meet Me at Midnight. I have heard so many good things about the Meet Me in the Underworld palette that they released last year. A lot of people were saying that that was one of their like top 3 palettes of last year. So I had high expectations going into this palette. I don't think they were really met though. Some of these shades are a little sheer, not really buildable, not pigmented to the point where I would want them, and I also think that all of these shimmers are traditional metallics, and I was kind of hoping for something more. I don't think that this is a horrible palette, but I think that the formula of this one is just okay. Not bad, but just okay, and there are so many palettes that outperform this one, if I'm gonna be totally honest. I'm still hoping though that they're gonna release something amazing again maybe next year, maybe with the same quality as the Meet Me in the Underworld had. This one I just think is okay. Then we're coming into something that I like it for what it is, but it's definitely not a favorite palette. This is from City Color. This is the only thing I've tried from City Color, and this is the Whatever 90s Whatever Forever palette. This is a very bright, almost acid, borderline neon rainbow palette that has shimmers and mattes. This is a pretty color. I will say the weakest color in this palette is this like darker matte purple. This is not incredible quality, but you can definitely make this work. I made an amazing rainbow like makeup look with this one. If I were to recommend you a rainbow palette, would this be it? No. But if you said, listen, I need a rainbow palette, maximum $15, this is the one that I would recommend. Because this is, I think it's $14, definitely decent quality, lots of options, packaging feels a little cheapy, it is what it is, but it's not a bad palette. It's definitely decent, especially if you're balling on a budget, you're maybe not a lover of color, and you just want to have a rainbow palette to dip in every now and then. So I will say we are definitely in a day and age right now where most makeup that's being released is good, and it just comes down to preference. Like, what do you like? What do you prefer? What do you think is worth the money? Because some things are more expensive than others. So I will say that most of these palettes are like good quality, but it comes down to preference and maybe just smaller things that you prefer over others, or just like not thinking that something is like worth the price. And that is definitely the case when it comes to this one. This is the Holiday palette from Pat McGrath. This is the Mothership Mega Celestial Nirvana. This is not a bad palette. This is not a bad quality palette, but it's very expensive. It's like $85, and it is good mattes and good metallics. But that's it. And I think that you can get better than this at half the price. And yeah, that's my review of this. There's nothing wrong with this, but I personally think that you can get better than that for half the price. I'm gonna actually put this one here because I am extremely impressed with the matte quality. And if this had been smaller, this would have been top 5. Not even kidding. I love an all matte look. I'm wearing a little shimmer here, but I love an all matte look. If this had been smaller, if this had been a 9-pan palette, this would have been top 5. The matte formula is incredible, and I cannot wait for Sugar Drizzle to come out with an all matte palette that's smaller and a little bit more curated, because honestly the matte quality is incredible. And the House of L palette by Adept Cosmetics is a really great color story. It's such a nice edited down color story with really impressive shimmers and really good mattes. These mattes are buildable, so you can get these to look even darker on the lid than they are here. The same kind of a way that you can do with quite a lot of eyeshadow formulas, like you can build them up to get them to be even darker. The thing that's bringing this down a little bit is that this shimmer matte ratio, which is the thing with all Adept palettes. Adept loves shimmers and I love mattes. We just talked about that. I love mattes. And this one has 3 mattes and 6 shimmers. That's not my perfect ratio, but I know it's other people's perfect ratio. I also will say that some of these shimmers did crease on me, which is not ideal. Next, we're coming into one of my favorite indie brands, and this is Ace Beauty. They did release this Violet Sage palette, and I do think that they released this for BoxyCharm. And I did try this quite a few times because I wanted to put my finger on, is this different or not? And I do think that it is different from their normal, really amazing quality. We're gonna talk about that when we come to the absolute end of this video. I think this is a good palette, but it's not that good. And I wish that they would only release palettes going forward with that great formula, because it makes no sense why they would lower their standards, even if it is for BoxyCharm. This is just me. Then we are doing the Winnie the Pooh and Colourpop palette, Sweet as Can Be. It's so cute. This whole collection was so cute. Highlighters from this collection, that one was mentioned in the Best of 2022. Such good, that product, amazing. The palette is nice. It goes a little deep. There is a couple of greens, there is a yellow, there is a couple of cool colors in here. You can go a little bit more bold if you want to. I did that in the video where I was doing look. If you're wondering about like looks with any of these, I have featured all of these palettes on my channel during this year. All you have to do is go back to my channel, and there is a, if you scroll on the first page, there is a little magnifying glass. If you search for Colourpop and Winnie the Pooh, it will show you the video that I am doing with Winnie the Pooh. So trust me, if you're looking for inspiration with these palettes, I have that, yeah. That is on my channel. Trust me, it's out there. I think this palette is a really cute neutral palette with a twist. I thought this was really nice. Not the best Colourpop quality, but definitely good Colourpop quality. This, I think, is that amazing Colourpop quality that Colourpop usually has. And this is the Star Wars palette, the Darth Vader. This color story though isn't, again, it's very gray leaning. I mean, it's space gray. I don't know what I mean. Darth Vader is black with a red lightsaber. I mean, it makes sense. This is a matte black with, like, you can see it is a matte black that has red shimmer in it, that if you pack it on, the shimmer is there. If you blend, the shimmer is gone. It's basically a matte black. This burgundy red is incredible. The metallic red, incredible. The quality of this is really good. It's just a great palette. And it's not my jive. It's not the journey I'm going with. And it's the same with this one. This is the Troublemaker palette by Colourpop. This is nice, good quality, but it's gray. At least this one has some purples and some like pink leaning shades, but it's still very gray. If you were looking for this kind of color story, definitely both of these palettes. Cannot recommend them enough, but they're gray. And it's not my jam. It just, that's the reason why they're here. It's not my jam, it's not my journey. These I somewhat like the color story, but I don't know what to do with, I'm just hoping for more from Nomad Cosmetics. These are the Bad Side Zodiac palettes that they came out with. This is the Earth one, which is, it's really good, but I feel that Melt has a really good quality when it comes to their eyeshadows. This is my favorite, the Air one, because this one at least has a duochrome here. That's really fun. The color story is a little bit unexpected. I just feel like these are a little bit predictable, and I feel like Melt is falling behind. They're still charging a lot of money for their palettes, but there are nothing else but mattes and shimmers in their palettes, and they're just, I'm not inspired by this color scheme, except maybe the Air and the Earth one. But again, I have that kind of color story from brands at an equal quality for less money, and I'm just, I don't know. I want to see like an evolution of Melt, of what they're offering for that kind of heavy price tag. Then we have the Naughty Box of Chocolates. I am not loving this color story, but I can't deny this is incredible quality. If you're looking for an all brown palette, and if you don't want a black and you don't want something that's super light, because this is more dark but not super deep to somewhat light but not super bright, you might love this. I've heard a lot of people that love neutral looks loving this palette, and I cannot deny that the quality is incredible. This is really incredible eyeshadow quality. It's just I cannot rank an all brown palette higher than that, I think. Do I have? I don't know. I might have one, but it's all brown. It's mattes and shimmer. The quality is great, but it's not my jive. But if you're looking for an all brown palette, this is incredible. Just letting you know right now. This is the Martina Cosmetics, I think it's called the Diner palette. Yeah, Martina's Diner. How do you open this one? So I honestly really like the idea of this palette. The inside, the packaging is very cute. I like the color story, but I'm not blown away by this eyeshadow formula. I think it's good. This one goes from really light, pointing at the black, but really dark, and also is a super dark burgundy, to really light, and there's also some mints here, and there's also like a baby pink here. I think the formula is good, but not amazing, and the shimmers are, they're good shimmers, but they're a very traditional shimmer formula, and I feel like I'm wanting some, again, makeup nowadays, it's good. All makeup is pretty good. I'm just expecting, I just want something more. This is the Nude Ego Unleashed palette by BH Cosmetics. This is the only BH Cosmetics palette I'm going to be ranking in this video. I did forgot to say that in the beginning. I actually took out all of the quads and like the Natasha Denona mini palettes, because I was like, you know what, I'll not include all of those quads and mini palettes. I've already reviewed those throughout the year. I don't need to be including all those mini things as well. So I was like, six pence or more, or you cannot be included in this one. So this is the only one from BH Cosmetics I am reviewing, but I'm gonna let you know this is really good quality. I just wish that this one was a little darker and that this one was a little lighter, but there is actually a duochrome in here. This is nice quality, like it's really nice quality, and this gives me hope for the future. We're all crossing our fingers, hoping for the best for BH Cosmetics, because if you have seen these rankings from before, because this is not the first year I'm doing these rankings, BH Cosmetics has won 2 years in a row. So I know that they can make amazing stuff. Next is another palette by Nomad Cosmetics, and this is Paradise Islands. This is a very fun, very bright palette that has a row of like blue-ish shades, a row of green-ish shades, and then a row of pinky coral-ish shades. Very tropical, very fun. Personally, I wish that this went a little darker, but I can't deny that there is a lot of variation within this palette. And if you don't like a look that goes as deep as this, and you want to add some like, maybe some colorful shades to mix in with neutrals, these are all shades that would go fairly good with neutrals. There's also a lot of really fun toppers and duochromes, and I think that this is a really fun quality palette. I like it, but it's not my favorite color scheme from Nomad. Then we have 2 palettes from Gloss Gods that came out this year that I've been trying a little bit more. This is the new Neutrals palette. This is a neutral palette with a twist. Because look at that. Do you see that like do you see that? It's like multichromes, duochromes, shimmers, like toppers. This is an incredibly versatile and fun neutral palette. It can be made. Like Gloss Gods made it. It can be made. But I'm also putting at the same position the Vintage Glam, which is a like going very dark plum to very light dusty pink, and also some purples. Again, there are some duochromes. Can I show you? Am I showing anything? I think you can see some. I don't know, but I have videos with these palettes. Very interesting formulas, interesting color scheme. The reason why these aren't ranking higher is that I love the shimmer formula. The matte formula is okay, but not my favorite. Definitely workable, but I have better matte formulas in my collection. But I really like the color story of these. I think it is a very interesting and fun twist on something as more of a neutral leaning palette. But just when you bring in different kinds of formulas, it just breathes some life into the whole concept. This is the Fantasy Cosmetica palette that I like more than the other one, and this is called the Bard palette. This also is a very yummy warm color scheme, and I really do like a color scheme like this. Even though blue is my absolute favorite eyeshadow color, it is my absolute favorite. I also love yellows and like oranges and colors like that. I think it's beautiful. There is also a multichrome in this palette. I don't know if you see the one in the middle. It is a green, blue, purple multichrome. Very beautiful palette. I think that this matte formula is better than the one in the other one. I think they did a really good job with this one. And then we have the Batty Bean and Shroud Halloween palette. I think that Shroud Cosmetics makes incredibly quality eyeshadows. The only one that wasn't like my absolute favorite was this green that was a little bit more on the sheer side. It definitely could be built up, and you were able to build these other shadows on top as well. I just wouldn't personally wear this one without any of the other shadows together because I didn't think that it was pigmented enough for that. The reason why this one isn't higher is because I feel like this color story is a little tricky. I don't know exactly. And with that being said, again, I'm a person that loves experimenting with colors. I love experimenting with different formulas and color combos and blending stuff together that you might not think of initially. And I'm finding it a little hard. Example, this dark blue, I don't know where that one is going because I can't blend it with this one, it will muddy up. And I can't blend it with this one, it will muddy up unless I am extremely careful. I can probably use it with the green, but would I not prefer the dark green? There's just some choices in this palette that is a little tricky that makes me think that this is not a beginner palette. And I like sitting down and wondering like, oh my god, what am I gonna do with this palette? But maybe I don't want level expert on my puzzles. Still think the quality is beautiful though, and I have seen a lot of beautiful looks come out of this. Maybe it's me. Maybe I'm challenged with this one. I actually noticed in this pile that there is a couple of more like neutral palettes in here that I like a little better, so I'm gonna explain why I prefer those more than the other one, even though I think the quality of that one is beautiful as well. But here is the Sigma New Mod palette. This is one of the palettes that Sigma came out with this year, and here's one thing that I'm gonna say. I wish that Sigma would stop doing these super shiny insides because I feel like it takes away from the actual color scheme and makes the palette look a little bit more bland and a little bit less pigmented than it actually is. I think that this super shiny inside just makes it look not its best version. But this palette actually goes from really light to really dark. It has some really nice like reddish burgundy shades. It has a duochrome here. It has some neutrals that are more like on the neutral brown side, and a gold if you prefer that. I think this is a very well-rounded palette that will appeal to someone who loves color like me, and also to someone who loves neutrals. And I really like the quality from Sigma Beauty as well. I do have a palette from them that I'm ranking a bit higher in a bit. And then we have the Art Nouveau palette by Kylove. I feel like this is a very well-rounded like rainbow palette. It also has some more interesting shades in here because instead of a matte white, it is a shimmery white, which is really fun and really can bring some really good contrast to a look. There are some matte colors here, and then we have these two very interesting orangey yellow metallics that are really cool. I just think that this is a well-rounded rainbow palette that also has some neutrals, and I think they did a good job with this one. This is the Dragon Fruit palette. This is the collaboration between Nomad Cosmetics and Emily Violet Marie. I think they did a really great job with this palette. The only reason why this isn't higher is that did I tell you before that I'm a matte gal? This is an all shimmer palette, and I definitely do enjoy reaching in sometimes and grabbing a shade, and Cleonad has amazing quality at their like shimmers. I think that maybe some of these shimmers that they're very pink, and I do understand the dragon fruit theme. I really do enjoy this one though, and if you love an all shimmer palette, maybe you would really like this even more. Some of these are multi-chrome, some of these are duochrome, some of these are more traditional shimmer. Loving the two greens down here, of course. I think this is great quality, but I can't rank it higher because I would prefer an all matte palette. And actually, Cleonad makes amazing mattes, so I really hope that 2023 is the year that we get to see the return of Cleonad mattes. Then we have the ABH Rose Metals palette. This palette has been one of the trickiest palettes of this year because I can't really pinpoint something about this palette. I don't love the undertones on me. I think the quality is beautiful, but I don't love the undertones on me. And I also think that this one is lacking a little bit of contrast. This one is not light enough to be an inner corner highlight on my skin tone. So I would also assume that anyone that is fair, light, medium like me, and then maybe if you're medium, you can get this to be like an inner corner highlight. I don't know. This just has a little darker of an undertone. I think you can see here. So I just think that it is a little, I don't know, there's something about this. It's very grungy, but it's grungy and cool tone. Maybe that's why I'm struggling with the color scheme. We're getting into some neutrals now. I have to mention this one. This is the Tartelette Jewel. I have been enjoying this so much. I think that this one is a very well made small 6-pan palette. There's a dark plum, there is a matte pink and a matte taupe, so that you can make it a little bit more pink if you want to, or a little bit more brown if you want to. There is a traditional like almost like baby pink champagne-y shimmer, and then there are two more metallic shades in here. So there are actually like 3 formulas in a 6-pan palette. I think that's really good. Small, compact. I brought this on vacation. Love the quality. Really hope that Tarte will come out with some more interesting color stories. Will they? I don't know, but I still like this one. This is the Lunar Beauty Nude Prism palette. I wonder if this is probably one of the highest ranking nude palettes, like neutral palettes in this this year. There's a matte black, there is a really light color here that's matte, and there's also an almost shimmery white in here. Will say these shimmers look incredible on the lid. This, I made a bronze smoky eye with this palette, and honestly, few times that I've like, oh my god, I really like this bronze shimmer. Really beautiful undertones, and this is a very dark burgundy, so if you want to, and if you match it together with some of these more pinky leaning colors, you can make your look very dramatic and also almost a little bit colorful because of the undertones of this. I think this is a very well made neutral palette that is like a pinky peach brown neutral palette, and I think that is very high quality, and I really like it. This one surprised me so much, but I do have a soft spot for a small palette. This is also a 6-pan palette, and this is by Drizzle. I think that this is so smart. You have 3 multi-chromes / duochrome shadows in here. I think you can see this one goes to, you can see. Yeah, do you see that? That's impressive. And then you have 3 mattes, really nice quality. This yellow is not 100% opaque, but it's still good quality. You can mix these two together, these two. It's really a well thought out color story of good quality shadows and a fun palette with a little dinosaur. I just think that this is really interesting, and I can't wait to see what more is coming up. Again, neutral palette, but if you see a theme on what I like with neutral palettes, it's something that has contrast, and I also a yellow leaning neutral palette. And this one took me by surprise because this one has this beautiful mustard here that's really wonderful. This is the ColourPop and C3PO palette. Really do enjoy this palette. It's so mustard and warm without being orange. It's like warm and honey. It's like high quality, beautiful shades. Definitely do recommend this one. If you love neutrals and you want to have something yellow leaning, even if you don't like C3PO, I think it is a beautiful palette. I don't go for neutrals that often. I mean, you can tell by this face, but I can definitely see myself bringing this one like on vacation because I like having a neutral look every now and then, or bringing it out to wear because I love yellow and brown together. Here is the Cyberpunk palette by Gourmande Beauty. This is such a fun color story. I will say some of these are not fully opaque, like the blue and the purple. You might need to start with those and blend the edges. They don't build wonderfully, but I really think that Gourmande Beauty has come such a long way when it comes to color stories, when it comes to just formulas overall. I think that all of these really work, just that these two are a little thin and need a little extra work. This yellow is incredible. Incredible, and the packaging is beautiful. This is a gaming inspired makeup brand. Very, very beautiful. I'm gonna mention this one here. This is the Lunar Beauty 12 Days of Lunar. I'm not gonna open this one. I don't know if you're still opening your advent calendars as this is going on. I will say the color story of this one isn't this. I was kind of hoping for this because this color story goes together with my outfit and what I'm wearing today. This isn't really what the story is. As Manny said in his video, the color story of this one is very fall, and I do think the color story works, and it does bring some color. It is a mix of neutrals and colors. The quality is beautiful, but I hope for next year that he brings this back and does this color story instead. I would love that. Here is the Natasha Denona Retro Glam palette. I'm torn with this one because I think that this one has great quality. I think some shades in here are amazing, but I also think that some shades in here are too similar on the eyes. And I also think that this one It looks like it goes really deep. Both of these two are, all three of these are shimmers. And this is a cream to powder, and it doesn't look this dark on the eyes. I think that this palette is lacking a little bit of dimension. I feel like this palette is lacking a little bit of depth. And I even saw one of the looks that Natasha Denona did with this palette. I was like, oh, look, she was able to make this really dramatic look with this palette. Maybe I'm the one missing out. Looked at the tutorial. You know what she did? She brought in the matte black. So maybe if you do that, you can get that dimension. But I'm just saying that even when the makeup artist herself is making a dramatic look with this palette, she's bringing in the matte black. This is the Gourmande Cosmetics Nocturnal palette. Gourmande Cosmetics has really good eyeshadow formula. These mattes are incredible. I will say these shimmers don't really live up to the Gourmande formula that I know and love. I feel like some of these were a little flaky and not as shiny and smooth as I'm used to. So something about this, because this is a multi-chrome formula, I think you can see like how they change. And something about this multi-chrome formula was not as smooth as I'm used to, but I still think it's a beautiful palette. I'm not including the Glamorous palette because I've only used it once, but that one has better shimmers in my opinion than these two. Look at us working our way through getting to the top. Now we are doing Unearthly's. This is the So Strange palette. This is the palette that Unearthly had, one of the palettes that they had for Halloween. They had 4 palettes for Halloween, and I know they're sold out right now, but I think she's thinking about bringing them back, but with different packaging, so that this was like the limited edition packaging and now you're getting different packaging. I think that this palette has incredible formulas. I will say these two, don't overdo it, they will crease, but the formula is beautiful. I wish that this one went a little darker, and I will say this is also one of those color stories. When I look at it, I'm like, I don't know exactly where I'm gonna go, and I definitely would want to bring in something darker, but I love Unearthly Cosmetics. I think she makes really nice things. Then we have something a little bit unexpected. I bought this palette myself from Colourpop. Just as you know, some of these are PR, some of these I bought myself. I would say it's probably like a 50-50 split because I do buy quite a lot of makeup. This one I bought myself, this one I got in PR. I'm just letting you know, I don't really discriminate. If I love it, I love it. If I hate it, I hate it. But this is the Bon Voyage palette by Colourpop. This is the collaboration that they did with BT21. This one has a bunch of brightening shades, and I really like that because I like the contrast. This one has 3 pressed glitters though. I don't love that, but it's a big palette, so I'll forgive them. It also has a really dark charcoal gray that I managed to use with both the orange and the blue, and also some of these when I was doing a look outside of YouTube. And this red actually is a matte red with like some shimmer particles in it. Like, you can really make a bunch of different looks with this one. It's almost like a pastel rainbow palette. I think that this was good for what it is. I don't have any of the, as I'm filming this, any of the mega palettes by Colourpop. So this is probably the biggest palette I have from the brand. I like it. I wish it didn't have pressed glitters, but I thought it was a good palette. I had fun using it. Now we're getting into the Bridgerton and Pat McGrath Labs. This is a 6-pan palette, and I honestly think that this is a really nice palette. I was a little salty with this collection because I think this was a pre-sale, but she didn't say on her website that it was a pre-sale. But this palette actually has 4 different formulas. It has the special formula. You can see that it's a super sparkly, like light blue, very icy, super cool eyeshadow. It does give a little fallout, so you do get glitter everywhere. I can live with that if I just get some pretty eyeshadow. There is a Baked Gelée satin formula, 2 traditional shimmers, and a matte. Do like this one. I like the color story. I can't put it higher than that because it's a little bit like one-dimensional in the color story. And I will say that a lot of people are saying that they're finding the Pat McGrath and Bridgerton collection on TJ Maxx. So if you're living in the US, check out TJ Maxx. You might hit the jackpot. Here is the other LH Cosmetics palette that I'm talking about. This is the LH Cosmetics Reload palette. Ooh, I love this compact format that they're doing. It's so nice and compact, loving it. It has some darker like wine mauve burgundy tones, really deep color. This is like a khaki brown. It's almost like a little green leaning brown. You have a beige one, you have 2 very high shine colors up here, and then you have a green and a blue shimmer down here. They're all mattes and shimmers, but it is a really nice palette with some contrast, high quality shadows. I do really enjoy this one, and I love this format. I think it's beautiful. This is the Jaclyn palette that I have loved from this year, and this is the Jaclyn Cosmetics Strawberry Fields. Really do enjoy this palette. This would have been even higher on top if the shimmer formula wouldn't have been so mediocre. This is a pretty mediocre standard shimmer formula, and I really hope that the brand will update that for years to come. But it goes pretty dark and it goes very light, and there also is some more orangey tones, and there are some more red tones, and then you have some pink here. I think it is a fairly versatile palette for just being a 10 pan. Just a shame that the shimmers are not top notch. This is the Strange and Unusual by Bella Beauty bar. These shimmers are incredible. Again, I think you can definitely see that we have some duochromes and some multichromes in here. Very impressive shimmers. The mattes are a little thin for my liking. I will say that this black that has some green specks in it, again, you pack it on, you'll see some specks, blend, the specks are gone. It's merely just for show, if I'm gonna be honest. I will say that the mattes are a little thin, except this black, so I will hope for the future that they're able to update their matte formula a little bit, because the shimmers are incredible. The Spooked palette, that was the collaboration between Doodles by the Bunny and Gourmande Girls. This one has a better matte formula. It's a very nice pigmented buildable formula. I do like the shimmers as well. I thought this was a really fun palette, and there is a duochrome here. You can see that it is like almost borderline multichrome, because it has a peach and then it's like purple. You see pink, peach, green. I think you see it. Maybe it's more like a duochrome with like a colored base, and there's one here as well. You see the green to the copper. Very pretty. I think the color story is really good. They did really good with this palette. And then the other Sigma palette. This is the Sigma and Alice in Wonderland palette. Again, I really hope that in the future we don't get to have this shiny inside, because I think it takes away from the actual color story. Even when you look at it in real life, the background is not doing it any favors. But I like the warmer section, the cooler section, and then where it meets in the middle. And there's a dark shade, and this like metallic black with multicolored shimmer is incredible. It's like a satin metallic, creamy black metallic. It's really, really cool. Really enjoyed this palette. Had a lot of fun with it. I think the looks that came out of this is beautiful, and it is more pigmented than it looks in the pan, but I think it's the gold background that's just throwing it off a little bit. This is the Nomad Cosmetics Fête de Provence. So this is the Provence palette that they did. You know, I'm not all about the gray shadows. You know that by now. I am a broken record. So if we don't count this, I love each and every color in this palette. I won't use that part that much. You can definitely deepen up with this one, though I just don't use grays that much. It's always a throwaway shade in the palette for me. I also will say that this one is a duochrome, and it has a green sheen. And I kind of wish that they hadn't put in that kind of yellow in here, because it doesn't really go with the undertone of the other. It's more like a muted, almost cool toned palette that's colorful but still a little muted. And I feel like this very bright lime green shift just throws this color story off a little bit. So I kind of wish that they've just put in a very bright yellow here without the shift, or maybe another kind of shift, maybe a purple or a peach shift. I think that that would have matched better with this palette. But I think the quality of this one is really good. I just won't use the grays that much, but I think that they did good with that one. Now is the Blend Bunny and the Dollhouse palette. This was the first palette that I got after moving here, and this is the very big neutral palette from Blend Bunny. But I will say, there is all of these, they look black, but they're like almost black. It's a very dark brown, very dark purple. This is a black, this is more of a cool tone brown, a very dark plummy burgundy, and then you have a very dark like olivey green. There are some very cool undertones in here. I will say that the other neutral palette that Blend Bunny came out with later this year, I prefer over this one. It's a little bit more curated. It has even more interesting undertones, because for me, a lot of these shades are throwaway shades. But if you want a traditional neutral palette with a lot of options, the quality is beautiful. And there's also some unexpected elements thrown in here, like the green row and this iridescent pink. It does have good quality and a lot of variation. I just think that the other one that she did is even like more curated and better. It's just a better curation than this one. This is the Cindy Grace and Tina from the Fancy Face Tropic Color Palette. This is the one that they came out with, and I mean this palette has some of my favorite thing in the world, which is true blue mattes. It has a dark blue, a mid-tone blue, and a very almost periwinkle like this one here, leaning matte blue. The mattes in this palette are incredible, and the shimmers, like the metallics in this palette, are incredible too, but they are more of a traditional metallic formula, and I prefer something that is leaning a little bit more, I don't want to say thinner, but a little bit more on the, I don't want to say topper side, but sometimes these more thicker metallic formulas can make my lids look a little heavy. There is a duochrome in here as well, but the duochrome is a little flaky, so you will need some kind of a binder agent, maybe a glitter glue, or spraying your brush to make this properly work. I think the color story is beautiful though. One of my favorite shades is this one. It's actually a cream satin. It's a matte with a little sheen. It's very unexpected and very pretty. Another collab, and this is the Teresa is Lethal. This is the collaboration between Teresa is Dead and Lethal Cosmetics. This is round number 2. I think that this one has some of my favorite shimmers from Lethal Cosmetics, and I'm not usually the person that sings praises to a shimmer formula. The silver is incredible. This like pinky coral, beautiful. This one is incredible. It's like a baby blue with like a periwinkle purpley like shift to it. Incredible. And I really like how these shades look together. The look that I did in the video where I was using this one, absolutely incredible. The silver is just so cool. Again, both of these shades, they're throwaway shades for me. I won't get a lot of use out of those 2 shades because it's not shades that I really use. But I do like the unexpectedness of this palette, and I have really liked the looks that have came out of it. This is the Natasha Denona Pastel palette. I usually love Natasha Denona, and I love Natasha Denona quality. This is a true pastel palette. Again, this one doesn't go this deep on the lids. I remember in the Metropolis palette, her cream to powder really looked deep and like impactful on the lids. This one doesn't look this deep on the lids, I will say. There's a couple of unexpected elements in here, like you have a couple of like duochromes in here. This one is a pink iridescent. Really like these cream to powders that are like the pastel ones here. I do think that this one has great formulas, but for me, this is a companion palette. And I kind of wish that this one had been a white instead. Because when I reach for a pastel companion palette, I usually want the white as well. So that is just personal preference. Definitely 1,000,000% personal preference. But I do think the quality is really good. It's just not a palette that I reach for on its own. Then we have the Lethal Cosmetics 1-Up palette. This is my favorite shimmer of all time from Lethal Cosmetics. It is called Final Boss. It is a light green with a purple sheen. It is so pretty. I really like the color story of this one. It has deep colors, it has bright colors, it has really impactful shimmers, and I love this one in the corner. I just really think they did a good job with this palette. I really like the shimmers of this one. I feel like Lethal Cosmetics, I like them as a brand, I really do, but I feel like this year they really stepped it up even more and made me like them even more. This is the Grind palette by Unearthly Cosmetics. I like a 9-pan palette. For me, this would have been way higher had this been a super dark like burgundy, or if this one even could have been switched out to something else. Just would have wished that this one had something that was very dark to make this a perfect 9-pan palette, because I love tones like this. I love oranges, I love reds, I love the mix with a couple of greens here as well. This duochrome is so pretty. I think you can see the duochrominess. It is like a gold to a peach, very, very pretty. I just wish that this one had something that was even a little bit darker, but I love the bright oranges. It just makes me very happy. This is the Still Pretty palette by September Rose. This is one that I reviewed at the beginning of the year. I think that this metallic red that's called Signia is probably the coolest metallic in my collection. Is that true? No, but top 10. It is a bright coral with almost a wet look. It's so metallic, it looks wet on the lid, and it has like visible purple specks in it that looks so incredible. This is a red and pink palette, and I love that color scheme. It also has a white, well, it's like a white with a pink sheen up here, and I will say that this one goes really deep. You can really deepen that up to be really deep. The reason why this one isn't at the tippity top is because I think that the mattes in this one is slightly more hard pressed than the September Rose quality has been before. September Rose makes amazing eyeshadows, but I still think that this is beautiful, and that Signia shade, it is incredible. We are working our way to the top, And now we are getting to the Nomad Cosmetics Primal palette. This is a rainbow palette. This is a jewel toned rainbow palette. If you want a traditional rainbow palette that goes from really light pastels to the brights to the jewel tones, and then a row of jewel toned metallics and a big white and a black. I don't need a big white and a black. I understand if you're doing Instagram makeup, you need that. I don't need that. I don't need that, but I can't deny the quality is beautiful, but it is a rainbow palette, and at the end of the day, I want a rainbow palette to have a little bit more of a twist, to be super intrigued by it. This is that Angelica Cosmetics Leather and Lace, and this one would probably have been higher if it had smaller pans, because this one has huge pans, and even though I like that and I understand who loves that, I do think that smaller pans would have benefited this palette because it is a beautiful color scheme. It is like dark, wonderful mauvey plums, beautiful bricks and a dark brown, a black, and then some khaki greens. This one is a duochrome. Can I show it? I don't know if you can see it, but it almost has like a gold to a peach pink like shift. It is really beautiful. I just think that this is a wonderful, almost like, it's like the bridge between colorful makeup and neutral makeup, and I really like it. I just wish it had smaller pans. This is the ColourPop Limelight palette. I do not understand why this is no longer available. Something must have happened with the supply chain for ColourPop to discontinue this palette so quickly after it released, because it did release this spring, but it's no longer available again, and I just think that this is beautiful. I do wish that this one looked a little deeper on the eyes, but I can't deny that it is a beautiful palette, and it is a really nice twist on a monochromatic like warm green palette, because it has different undertones, and this one here, it is a shimmery champagne with a lime green sheen, and it's just so cool and interesting, and I really like this palette and where they took it with this palette. I just don't understand why it's discontinued. Like, make it make sense. Ooh, an Angelica Cosmetics Sleepover palette. Such a beautiful palette. Again, I love berries, I love pinks, I love these kind of tones. There's a duochrome here, and I've used both this one and this one and this one on the cheeks, and it works beautifully. And this one is a matte black that, like, if you blend it, it's just a black, but there is like pink shimmer in here, so if you do like a smoky eye and pack this on, you'll be able to see some of the shimmers. But yeah, there's a couple of really nice mattes, there's a couple of really great shimmers, and I really do enjoy also that there is a dark brown here, so if you don't want to go super pink, don't want to go super like bright and colorful, you can do that as well. Again, wish it had smaller pans. That has been my gripe with Angelica Cosmetics, but they are getting into smaller pans with some palettes now, and I'm kind of hoping that in the future all of them will have. This is the Control Alt Glam by ColourPop, one of my newer palettes from ColourPop. I think this color story is really inspiring. There is a pressed glitter here, I don't care about that at all, but I like that this one has neutrals, it has plummy purples, it has this turquoise and this duochrome purple blue. It's beautiful. It also has this beautiful peach duochrome that would look so amazing with some of these as well. I just think that this is a well-made palette in a great packaging, and I really enjoyed this one. I thought it was great. Again, Ace Beauty, one of my favorite indie brands. Their formula is beautiful. This is the Ambience palette. I think this was their fall palette. This palette has wonderful mattes and shimmers. Will say though that this does not go light enough for me. I would have liked some kind of a contrast in here that would have made it just pop a little bit, but I can't deny that the color story of this one is beautiful. There is great quality shadows in here, and yeah, if you like this color story, this here, I think you're gonna love that palette. This is the Nomad Whistler Snow Launch, one of the first palettes that I reviewed this year. This palette has even grown on me more throughout the year. These shimmers are incredible. Again, this is that kind of a blue with a periwinkle purple like shift to it. This one is such a nice, sparkly, beautiful, shiny, like sage green. This blue metallic is incredible. This is a pinky like topper duochrome. I like that this one has several deeper options, also some neutrals at the end with this red. I think that this palette offers a lot, and I did really enjoy playing with this one. This is my favorite Lethal Cosmetics palette of the year. As I'm filming this, I haven't tried the new palettes that came out because I just recently got those, just didn't have time to get around to those for this review. But this is the Night Flower palette. This is such a stunning, pinky orchid purple blue. Someone said that this looks like an underwater palette, and I cannot unsee it. It definitely is that. It's just super pretty. I really like this color story. There is a couple of multichromes in here, and even though they're not super visible in real life, they look incredible on the eyes. And yeah, the looks that I've done with this one, really loved it. This is one of my ColourPop palettes that I've actually played with the most this year. I've actually reached for this quite a lot of times outside of YouTube as well. And this is the ColourPop and Hocus Pocus 2 palette. I like the rose that they did here. I think that the background of this one looks really cool in real life and it brings something to the experience, but like showing it on camera can be really annoying. But there's a gray row here that I don't care about. Like both of these two shades are throwaway shades, but there are neutrals, there are oranges, greens, and like purples, and I think that the quality of this palette is really nice, and I like the looks that I've done with this palette. I really think that they had a good idea with this one, and I think they executed well as well. I like this palette a lot. I think this is my favorite Hocus Pocus palette that ColourPop has done. One palette that I like even more from ColourPop is the Muppets palette. This is the one of the... We all know that ColourPop is doing several holiday palettes. This is one of the holiday palettes of this year. This, I really like it. These greens together look beautiful. This matte blue is stunning. This coral here, it just looks so bright, almost like a neon peach on the eyes. Love this deepening up shade. There is some shades here that almost look like pressed glitters, but they don't have any eye safety warnings. I think that ColourPop has been able to reformulate their glitters, so they're like dispensed in the eyeshadows in a way that they're safe for the eyes. It's not my favorite formula, but I totally understand who it is for, and I like that they're at least experimenting a little bit so that they can find something that is at least like they can say that it's safe to use around the eyes. Do really like the color story. I like how they broke it up: a pinky mauve, a green, a blue, and like almost like metallic bronze, and then like a almost like an orangey red row. I think it's really smart. Really like this palette. I thought it was really fun. This one was also really fun. This is the Michaela Part 2 palette. This is the first 10-pan palette that Glamlight did. And oh boy, have I been loving this format. I hope they continue to do a bunch of palettes in this format. 5 mattes, 5 metallics, awesome formula. This one is a duochrome. You can see it's like a plum. Can you see? It's like, I don't know if you can see. It's like a plum undertone with a green shift. This one is such a beautiful, almost icy algae mint. That sounds disgusting, but yeah, I really like how this looks. And I like that she was able to pull in some bright greens with some neutrals and still make it cohesive. I think that this might be my favorite ABH palette. With that being said, as I said, I'm not normally into neutrals, but this is the kind of neutrals that I can get into because it's neutrals with a twist. Again, the gold background is making it really hard. Both of these colors do deepen up on the eyes, so they are definitely deep enough for me in the crease, and that is something that I like. High quality mattes that you can build so that you can deepen them up on their own. This is a duochrome. There is a really cool like metallic, almost like bronze here with like almost purple shimmer in it. Very cool neutral. I'm not normally about those shades, but yeah, I just like this color story. The looks that I made with this one has been really great, and this is the kind of neutral palette that I can get into. If I'm looking for something more toned down, if I'm looking for neutrals, I know that this one not only can give me that, but also I can amp up the contrast with this one and make it like pigment enough for me. I think that this was a high quality palette. Now we're getting into some of my favorite Nomad palettes, and this is the Hudson Valley palette. This was their fall palette, and this was such a nice palette. I think they were really able to do something cool with this one, and this is very matte heavy, which, say it with me, I love mattes. I'm a matte girl. So this one has 3 shimmers in the middle, then it has a very warm leaning side and a more cool leaning side with some cooler tone greens, some cooler tone neutrals, warmer leaning neutrals, and a row of almost reds and oranges. Really high quality palette. Really did enjoy this one. The looks I made with that one has been amazing, and from what I've heard from you, you seem to really enjoy this one as well. This is probably the only palette in my collection that I still have the sleeve for. and this is the ColourPop Avatar palette. I just think that this one, Avatar: The Last Airbender, I just think that this sleeve is beautiful. So this palette came out, and this palette is the palette that made me watch the entire Avatar: The Last Airbender series, and yes, I love it. I actually think that this palette kind of represents the story. I know that some people wanted this to be more green. This is a very, very dark foresty green. And what I really like about this one is that you can use this one with all of the other mattes without them muddying together. So you can deepen up even the blue, even the red, even the yellow with this color without it looking too weird. I think that that was really smart. Where I think they probably should have gone a little bit more green is with this bronze here that's called Quicksand. They probably could put in something a little bit more green there to satisfy people's needs, but I will say this is very good quality, very well curated palette that I've really been enjoying and that I have been reaching into quite a lot of times during this year. It did come back to ColourPop, but I did see that it is sold out again. But yeah, I really did like this one. One that I liked a little bit more, and if we're gonna be honest, I cannot promise you that the reason I don't like this a little bit more isn't because it's Star Wars, because I am a huge sci-fi nerd. I love Star Wars. I love everything. I don't know, Star Wars isn't necessarily sci-fi, but I just love stuff like that. I love Star Trek, I love Star Wars, I love all of that. Battlestar Galactica, absolutely. But this is the bigger Star Wars palette that they did, and it's based on this classic poster. I just think it's so cool. I really love it. I think that this color story is really cool. This is a neutral palette that is amped up to the point where you can actually do really bright, colorful looks without using any of the neutrals if you don't want to, because there's a matte red, matte blue, metallic blue. There are these like swirly, swivelly, beautiful Super Shock shadows. There is a duochrome here that is a beige with a green sheen, also a little bit of an unexpected like add to this palette. I really like this palette. This again is the kind of palette that I reach for, but again it could also be Star Wars, but I like it. I think it's high quality. I like it. I had fun with it. Don't come for me. This is a palette that if you are a lover of neutrals, you probably think that this palette is a little colorful. And if you're a lover of colors, you probably think that this palette is very neutral. I think that this palette is very neutral, but it has some colorful elements. There is a multi-chrome in here. You can see it is a green to a pink. It's like a green gold pink, like multi-chrome. It's one of those, I don't want to say typical multi-chrome, but it's the gateway into multi-chromes. That's this shift right here. There is a really beautiful, it's called Edgy. It's like an eggplant, like cream gel to powder. There is a couple of more unexpected qualities here, like this almost fiery orangey peach here. I really like this palette, but I will say it is a little neutral leaning, but I also will say it is very high quality. If you've never tried Natasha Denona, if you want to see what the brand is about, I would say this palette, because it really does show how good this brand can be. It's really good quality. Not her most interesting color stories, but I think it's like a color story that a lot of people can get on board with. Then we have the Dark Fantasy palette by Beauty Bay. I really came around to Beauty Bay's formula this year. Now that I've realized, like, I also think that they have like upped their formula a little bit. It's not unusual for brands to be like, this is a good formula, but we can make it even better. I think that the only reason why this one isn't higher is because I think that this is a pretty predictable Beauty Bay brand color scheme. They always do this kind of a greens with blues and dual tones for the like holiday season, and I really would want them to, I don't know what I want. I would like something a little bit more unexpected from them. But with that being said, it is a good palette. The quality is really good. I definitely think that this one is a good palette. If you still see it in stock, Beauty Bay is a fairly affordable brand. I will link Beauty Bay down below if you've never been there. This is the Michaela. This is the big palette, the Michaela and Glamlight palette. This is, to be fair, a little bit too big to be a perfect palette from me. But I really do like the color story of this one. Not only does it have like the kind of blues that I have on my eyes today, which are true blues. Not teals, not turquoises, not mints. They are blues and I love it. There are some duochromes in here. There's a bunch of greens in here, some purples, some neutrals. I will say that I'm a little bit, this row up here with just a bunch of metallics, it doesn't go as well together with this color story, but I really do like it. Goes from really deep to almost pastel. It's like as pastel as Glamlight has ever been. Glamlight doesn't usually do a lot of really light shadows. Ace Beauté does not usually do a lot of light shadows, but this is probably as light as they have been if we don't count that pastel palette. And I really like the contrast in this palette. I think the quality of this one is the new, even better and improved Glamlight formula. I think that this formula is better than the first Michaela palette that came out, and I've really been enjoying it. And that last blue row, just that one alone could sell me any kind of palette. We are in the top 15. Some of these are gonna share a spot, but we're in the top 15. And here are the palettes that I have truly enjoyed the absolute most this year. Palettes that I have reached into the most, palettes that have inspired me the most, and palettes that I've used the most outside of YouTube. Some of these are newer, some of these are older, but yeah, I just think that these are amazing. This is the ColourPop in the Springs palette, and you already knew when I tried this palette how impressed I am with this palette. This palette is an orange and blue color story. I love orange makeup, I love blue makeup, so this one is a match made in heaven. This pastel mint here is one of the best pastel shades that ColourPop's ever made. I really hope in the future that all of their palettes have like this kind of an opaque, matte, light, bright color. And I will say, a bunch of their palettes actually have had that, so I feel like that's just for me perfect and makes me love it even more. The only one that isn't AA plus is this one. It's more like a B plus. Definitely is workable, but it's just a little bit more hard pressed. But yeah, I really like this one. This Neon Kiss, really love it. This is one of the most unexpected palettes for me of this year, because I didn't think that I was gonna love the Unearthly Vitality palette the way that I do. Remember when I got this palette, I was like, we'll see. But then I started using it, then I started swatching it, and I love this palette. Is this my favorite rainbow palette? Or is it like at least top 3 favorite rainbow palettes in my collection? Really do enjoy it. It's like a rainbow palette with a twist, because it doesn't have a red. It's like pinky, purpley, green, and I love the different undertones of green. There is blue, but more on the turquoisey side, so like it's again a little bit of a twist, and then purples, a matte white, and all of these shimmers are duochrome toppers. Absolutely stunning. There's definitely more than meets the eye when it comes to these shimmers. I don't know if you can see anything, but yeah, all of these are like duochrome toppers, and I just really enjoy the undertones. I love the undertones and the smaller pans. Oh, love it. It just really got to me. Just really like this one. I've had so much fun with this one. I think it's amazing. Then is the Blend Bunny palette that I talked about. This is the All Done Up palette. This is the 20 Shade Ultra Glam palette. I 100% agree. This is like the neutral palette of my dreams. It is a row of pastels with a matte white and a matte black. I don't care about the gray, but I understand why it's here. It's a row of like murky, grungy mid-tone, super dark shades, and then the metallic row is just beautiful. This is a green duochrome topper that's just absolutely amazing. I love that it's like cool tone brown, warm tone brown, yellow, mustard, yumminess, greens, more like cool tone grungy greens, and then like just a grayscale. Yeah, this has quickly become one of my favorite neutral palettes. I love this, and I love the smaller size. I hope we always get to see this size. This is big enough for me. That's not what she said. Now we're coming into one of the palettes that I am wearing on my eyes today, and this is the Beauty Bay when they released these are permanent additions to the Beauty Bay range. Basically just released some new color waves to the permanent line, and this is the berries. They came out with this in a 9 pan, in like a Thrillium pan. It wasn't a Thrillium, but like 40 something. Nobody needs that. Nobody needs that. This is the 16 pan, and I thought that this was a perfect size. Goes from light to dark, mid-tone, it's muted, it's colorful, it's like metallic. Really love this one. And then we have the one that I have on my eyes today, well, only on the under part. So this palette, this is the Midnight palette. Look at this. This is not even monochromatic. This is blue and purple with the matte black and the silver. I'm having the purples here and the blue in my inner corner. That is what I'm having on my eyes, these two purples here. Like I said, I will put it in the description box. Really like this one. I think the price tag, the quality, and the fact that they're not limited edition, absolutely amazing. This is the Earthy palette. This one is a green monochromatic palette done right. Cool tone, warm tones, muted, bright, metallics, light, dark. Really beautiful. Really like this one. I think it's so pretty, and yeah, I'm very impressed with that release. And I feel like that release from Beauty Bay was the release that made me go like, maybe I do really like this brand. Maybe I've come around. This is the Angelica Cosmetics Dead of Night. This probably would have been top 5 if not for the big pans. Don't love the big pans, but I do love the color story. This is a purple, blue, green, gray. It has some like duochromes. It has some deepening up shades. You have a pastel here, which I really love. Just really like this color story. Really like this quality. Just really wish that this one had smaller pans. But I can't deny that this is one of the best palettes that Angelica Cosmetics has ever done. Really like this one. I think it is absolutely stunning. Just wish it had smaller pans. This is my favorite palette from Nomad Cosmetics, and this is the palette, my favorite palette, not only for this year, but of all time. This is my favorite Nomad Cosmetics palette, and this is the, wait, let me see now. You were trying to correct me. It is Monteverde. Some people were saying Monteverde, but then other people were saying that that is an Americanized version of it, and some people were saying just say it like you would say it in Swedish, which is Monteverde. Is that correct? I don't know. I really tried my best here. I've looked up pronunciations. I've asked you. I'm not 100% sure, but this is the Monteverde. I'm doing the best I can. Cloud Forest palette, and this is stunning. This is a half green, half neon rainbow palette. All the neon shades are mattes, and then with the greens you have lighter ones, you have darker ones, you have this duochrome that is a brown to a pink, which is very unexpected, like a almost green, like you see like a greeny brown to a pink. It's very, very cool. Really like that this is matte heavy. I love mattes, and I like that this is such an unusual twist on the rainbow palette because it's rainbow in neons but with the greens, and really like the quality of these. The shimmers are wonderful. This blue purple like topper, this green topper, absolutely stunning. I just think that this is a really good palette. I've had a lot of fun with this one, reached for this a lot, and the whole composition of this palette is made to look like the owners of the brand saw the rainforest as like just a green forest with just animals and butterflies and flowers just peeking through the greenery. I just think it's a very innovative and unique palette with great quality. Okay, Glamlight. Really been enjoying what Glamlight has been doing this year. I think that they have made some really amazing palettes this year. They've really, like I said, they have somehow even made their formula better, and now I'm just like, wow, their formula is really great. The Frosted Flakes palette. Again, I love blue and I love orange, and this is just amazing. Really love the color story. The only thing that would be criticized for me is that the only light color is a metallic, but there is a light color in this one, and there is a black as well. This is a black with like some specks in it, but again, if you blend it, it disappears. Same story. If you pack it on, the specks stay. These mattes are incredible. The orange metallic is just beautiful. They kind of killed it with this one. I think it's really amazing. But another Glamlight listen, Glamlight has really been on fire this year. Yes, they have released a lot of stuff, but they've also released a lot of really good stuff. Another unsung hero of this year, and this is the Barbie palette. I mean, I don't love the front. I like Barbie when I was like 9. I really did. 8. But I don't love Barbie now. It's not one of my nostalgia things, but the quality of this palette, it does go from light to these 4 colors are very deep, and this one is fairly light, but I would wish for something that was even lighter, and I don't think that this palette is offering anything that's like an inner corner highlight for me. Is that the end of the world? Absolutely not. I'm just letting you know, but this quality and the color schemes and the mustards at the end, oh, I mean, I look at this and I'm still in awe of how beautiful I think this palette is. It's really just a stunning, cool palette. And when I first got this one, I was like, oh great, it's a Barbie pink palette. But this is so much more. Truly is one of the unsung heroes of this year. I love Ace Beauty, and these 2 new palettes that they released. This is the Aura palette. I just kind of recently made videos on these. This is just their absolutely amazing formula. This is their like formula that they had since they reformulated last year in really cool color stories. really deep, saturated, blendable, pigmented mattes, and really fun, good metallics. I'm just very impressed with how these palettes perform, how they look, how they wear on the eyes, just how deep and sexy it goes. Again, does it have anything that's light enough for me? This one does. It has this like mint here. No, but I will say Ace Beauty and Glamlight most usually doesn't, but damn, these are good. These are really good. I'm so excited about these. And now we're doing some Oden's Eye. I mean, the first release of Oden's Eye of the year was my palette, so we haven't really talked about any Oden's Eye yet. But we're coming into the Solmåne 2. Solmåne means sun moon. This is a Swedish indie brand. Their headquarters is in Sweden. It's also one of the reasons why I love working with Oden's Eye, because like I'm Swedish, they're Swedish. I'm just excited. Their whole brand is based on Norse mythology. Again, sun, moon, Solmåne. This is also a rainbow palette with a twist. It's like an unexpected rainbow palette because it has like the oranges, some purples and blues, and some like just doesn't have a straight up green, doesn't have a straight up red, but it still has that like, there's almost like a feel of a rainbow that's leaning over this one without being a on the nose rainbow palette, and just so fun and so unexpected, and I just really love this one. Beautiful topper shades, beautiful metallics. This is a duochrome shadow, and you also have a matte black here, and this like these beautiful dark like jewel tones. This is one of my favorite colors like in the world. I love, like for eyeshadows, I love blue, but I think this kind of color is one of my favorite colors altogether because it is an orange that is so yellow that you're starting to wonder if it's not actually a yellow. That is probably my favorite color in the world. Love colors like that. Okay, last Glamlight palette, but I am just so impressed with Glamlight this year, and this is the Scooby-Doo collection. Oh, I still cannot pronounce this one. This is the Rock Raggy? I'm sorry. Again, the 10 pan. I really hope we get to see more 10 pan palettes from Glamlight in the future. 5 mattes, 5 shimmers. Beautiful quality. Love how these look. Love how these wore. Absolutely stunning. And this is the Creeps and Crawls. This one together with a pastel palette. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Oh, so beautiful. I'm gonna get demonetized, but I really like those. I think they did an amazing job. I hope they keep that collab around for a little bit more so that people can truly like get some time to decide whether or not they want to pick it up, because I cannot recommend it enough. And again, some of these brands, like I said, I do have a code with them, so check down below in case you are interested so that you can save some money. Top 3 people! We've been here for forever. My dog has been tired of me a long time ago. He left. Top 3. This is truly the unsung hero of 2022. And I want to formally apologize to the Paletopoly palette by Ace Beauty for not featuring more on my channel. It is truly one of the best palettes of this year. The quality, the color story, I mean, are we seeing this? There are brights, there are murky tones, there are neutrals, purples, blues, pinks, even these like murky greens here, and some neutrals in the middle. And again, Ace Beauty has one of my favorite matte formulas that I've ever tried. They are pigmented, blendable, buildable. These shimmers are incredible. I actually did film another look for, it's probably up here as a short on YouTube, so check back on my shorts if you want to see shorts. Check back on my shorts if you want to see another look with this palette. But yeah, this is just incredible. And I feel like we all slept on this palette. I do think it's still available. Again, it doesn't really offer anything that's light enough as an inner corner highlight for me. That's not a shimmer, because I can use both of these as like inner corner highlights. I would love to see some mattes like pastels or like matte lighter shades brought in as well. But damn, this quality. It's so good. Okay, I'm gonna quickly talk about these because people are gonna be so upset, and I'm so sorry these are discontinued. They're no longer available. But that doesn't take away from the fact that the Oden's Eye Christmas release from this year truly was that girl. This is the Merry Christmas palette. I think that Oden's Eye underestimated how much people were gonna love these palettes because they were not able to restock again before Christmas. Incredible. This is a warm tone dream, and what I really like about this palette, not only is it incredible quality, Oden's Eye again, one of my favorite inner brands, what makes one of my favorite formulas, both in shimmers and mattes. This one has multichrome, it has duochromes, it has metallics, it has shimmers, it has mattes. It truly has a bunch of different formulas, cool tones, warm tones, just a really fun and different mix. And there is a bunch of different colors in here without being too jumbled up, without being too rainbow. There is red, black, orange, like purple, and then like greens up here, but it's not too crazy. And it is the same with this Christmas Eve palette. It has a bunch of different colors without being too jumbled up. Like there's grays, a couple of blues, there are some like more cool tone murky greens, but there's also a pop of some yellow here and a purple, and it still doesn't make it, that is a cat hair, it still doesn't make it too crazy or too jumbled up or too hard to grasp. Really think they did a good job with this. Again, there are multichromes and there are duochromes and just incredible quality, incredible color stories. Unfortunately discontinued, but at least most of the palettes on this list, at least in the top tier, is not discontinued. Can't win them all. So let's get into number one. Number one is the palette that I have on the top part of my lid. It is what I have on the upper part of my lid, and then I have that Beauty Bay palette on the lower lash line. And I don't think anyone's really surprised, and this is the Serenity palette by Cosmic Brushes. I'm just blown away by this palette. This palette has come and gone so many times during this year. Of course, I don't know like how much stock she has when she restocked, but just the fact that you're able to sell out of your palette this many times does mean something. It is a beautiful palette, and again, this also has a color story that is giving a lot of options without feeling too jumbled up, because there are greens and blues and purples, and there's also like a pop of a peach and brown up here if you want to take it in another direction. There are cool tones and warm tones, and same like this pastel purple here, but also this like periwinkle, which is what I have here blended out, and I have this dark blue, but there's also a dark teal. Not only is this a great color story and also a little matte heavy, that is just something I love. This is I would say that this is like either a very, very good iridescent like duochrome or maybe borderline multichrome, because it's called Opal, and it truly is like that green, blue, purple, like opal, and it is so pigmented and it's so beautiful. And this is a duochrome. It's what I have on my lid today. It is like a purple to a turquoise. There are some traditional shimmers, there's a topper, there's a duochrome, there are mattes. Not only is it good formula, good color story, it's also kind of affordable. Like, not like, oh, it's cheap, but it's kind of affordable in the grand scheme of things, and I am just so excited to see what Cosmic Brushes will do in the future. I just think that this is honestly incredible. And I did film this look in case you're interested. It should already be up as a reel. I will link it down below, like I said. I feel like this palette took me by storm. I don't want to say I had low expectations when it came to this palette, but I had no expectations really. It was a new brand. I had never tried them before. I really liked how this color story looked, and I was blown away. Such a good palette. And according to me, that is the best palette that has been released this year. I would love to hear your favorites. Of course, I think the Hella palette is number one, but let's not be cheating here. Of course, I'm gonna love the baby that I created myself. I would love to hear what you think. Would love to hear your thoughts. Do you disagree with me? Do you agree with me? Do you have some of these palettes? Do you think that there are some palettes that are your favorite palettes that I'm missing? Am I missing some of your favorites? I would love to hear about it. Do let me know down in the comments down below. Thank you so much for being here. If you like this, I would love to see you subscribe as well, because I'm gonna have a video tomorrow and I would love to see you then. Bye!